acute threat in the region today is posed by the DPRK. We both call for complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And we call on the DPRK to halt its illegal nuclear weapons program and its ballistic missile test as stipulated in the UN Security Council resolutions.
That was Secretary of State Rex Tillerson just moments ago at the State Department talking about and pretty much underscoring the fact, he says, that China and the U.S. are in total agreement about the escalating situation in North Korea. Tillerson also said that China and other countries, regardless of agreement, have to step up efforts to crack down on North Korea's criminal enterprises that fund their weapons program. Let me bring in former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Admiral James Stavridis, who also has just authored the new book, Sea Power, The History and Geopolitics of the World's Oceans. Admiral, I'm so glad we have you in the chair right now. This really seems to be disconcerting at the moment, that North Korea has these nuclear threats constantly. They may be out for, what, a sixth nuclear test. We have the situation of the death of the American who was just returned to the U.S. after being held prisoner, and China saying, well, we're in agreement, but they haven't done anything. What do you think happens next here?
I think we make China walk the walk, considering they've already talked the talk. So that means actually using the economic leverage they have to begin squeezing that North Korean economy. They're perfectly capable of doing that. The key words you heard from Secretary Tillerson were denuclearization of the peninsula. That's more than just freezing their program. That's making North Korea walk away from its nuclear capability. We need to force China to make good on those words. I think we have the leverage to do that with trade. Let's see how it turns out. But I'm encouraged by the fact that we see apparently the United States and China aligned fully on this issue.
I know that, but we really look at how the commerce between the two countries is continuing at full throttle. I believe something like 90% of the business between China and North Korea is actually most beneficial to North Korea. So at what point do you lay down sanctions against China? Is that a possibility? In the last hour, Captain Chuck Nash just said we may see the U.S. slap China with a sanction or two. Do you see that happening?
I don't, at least not yet. I think we have other cards to play in the diplomatic and the economic realm. And let's look back at President Trump's very good meeting with President Xi at Mar-a-Lago some months ago. The two leaders seem very simpatico on this. President Trump walking away from his discussions of putting big tariffs on Chinese goods. We've got leverage here. We ought to play that before we get to so-called secondary sanctions on China.
I just want to note for our viewers that the Dow Jones Industrial is down 71, is heading back down to session lows. And some of this, obviously, Admiral, has to do with geopolitical tension. There was yet another incident, this time over the skies of the Baltic Sea, where a NATO jet buzzed a plane that was carrying the Russian defense minister. We just got video released of this. And then the Russian fighter that was accompanying the Russian plane chased off the NATO plane. It almost seems like, to an untrained eye, again, I say an untrained eye, it sure looks like Russia's trying to hook the Allied forces into some type of dogfight.
You know, your eye looks pretty trained to me, Liz. Russia is really pushing the edges right now militarily, and those kind of close calls, which have been accelerating over recent months, are only going to continue because of our disagreements over Russian support for Assad in Syria, as well as the problems in Ukraine and the cyber attacks here in the United States. We've got real tension with Russia. It's ratcheting up. I think that is affecting the markets.
Okay, one last question. Between Russia and tensions with North Korea, which one should our viewers be most concerned about and watch most closely?
Strategically, it's Russia because of the Russian nuclear arsenal. However, I think it's much less likely than a short, sharp war with Korea. So tactically, worry about Korea. Strategically, long-term, worry about the rise of Russia. There's a lot to worry about out there, Liz.
Yeah, we've already got missile systems in the ground in South Korea. Admiral says watch out for North Korea, too. It's great to see you. Good luck with the book. It is called Sea Power. Admiral James Stavridis, former NATO commander.
Thanks,
to see you.
Liz.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much.